So hello there, my name is Nee.
I'm Irene.
And I'm Jaira.
And we're reviewing
12 O'Clock High.
So, what's the plot? Set in 1942, towards the end of World War II, this movie is about the United States Army Air Force 918th Bomber Unit in World War II. The film focuses on the daylight bombing raids over the German Nazis during World War II. Following an unsuccessful mission under Colonel Davenport, which left 7 U.S. 918th bombers dead, the 918th Bomber Unit faced change in command. Colonel Keith Davenport of U.S. Army Air Force 918th, a loving and kind man, however incompetent in dealing with command and war performance, is unfortunately relieved and replaced by cutthroat, strict, and severe commander, General Frank Savage.
The story deals with General Savage's battle to train his group of young men for attacks against the Germans. Although at first General Savage is severely harsh towards the young men, as the movie progresses, through experience he learns to understand and feel sympathy for the brave young men of the United States Army Air Force 918th Bomb Group. However, we won't spoil the rest.
Have to watch the movie.
Like seriously,
Watch it!
Watch it!
Watch it.
So part of the war and settings are 12 O'Clock High is set around 1942, towards the end of World War II. And this movie focuses on the bombing raids over Nazi Germany during World War II. Made in 1949 and directed by Henry King. 12 O'Clock High stars General Frank Savage, played by Gary Peck, the replacement colonel who constantly puts pressure on the crew in attempts to improve disciplinary skills and address deficiencies. The other character is Colonel Keith Davenport, played by Gary Merrill, the relief colonel who, although had more personal attachment to the men, was ultimately unsuccessful. Last but not least, General Pritchard,
Played by Robert Patton, the closest to General Savage among the bomber unit and crew. Well, I thought this movie was pretty boring and flat. There were no emotional or surprisingly revealing scenes, which I expected to see as it is categorized as a war movie drama. I wanted to see like blood and tears and sweat and violence, but sadly there was none. It wasn't too violent.
technically, yeah, is a classic, so...
Yes, because 12 O'Clock High was made in 1949, there was indeed no color in black and white. Because it was in black and white, it was like not my cup of tea. But without color, at times, I have to admit, I had completely dozed off. However, I did significantly enjoy the movie because there was a happy ending. I also appreciate the use of authentic World War II footage, as seen in the air battle scenes. It really made it easier for me to understand and visualize what it was like in the air fighting against the German Nazis during the World War II.
The movie at first was kind of confusing, but when you really pay attention to the characters and their actions, it starts to make sense. For me, it was boring because I was really confused for almost the whole part of the movie. But when I rewatched it, it started to make more sense. I feel I would have been more interested in it if it wasn't black and white. They were using real war footage. It helped me want to watch the movie because I really like watching historic footage.
It's still worth the watch. The happy ending's worth it, so I'd recommend this movie.
Well, definitely, I mean, why not, right? So despite the fact that it's black and white, which is not a big deal for me, what I find more interesting is, the mug-like object that old Harvey find right at the beginning of the movie, so which seriously looked like Robin Hood to me. Then it started his flashback to the war, and so the object appears multiple times throughout the movie. And we can really see the internal conflict that the main character, Colonel Savage, has to face. And as I watch the movie, I constantly asking myself this one question: is he going to put his men first or the duty first? And it's quite interesting to see how his personal attachment to the men starts to show over time. He softened a little bit more. So yeah, the war really brings out the best and the worst in those men, and I respect that. It's quite admirable. So we ask ourselves, how accurate are these war movies? The answer is yes. 12 O'Clock High is quite accurate. Surprisingly, many characters in this film were based on real life people. So, General Frank Savage, for example, was inspired after Colonel Frank A. Armstrong, who commanded the 306th Bomb Group, in which the 18th was modeled after, and his idea were inspired by the experiences of General Newton Longfellow. While to show this type of intense stress that all of the airmen has to go through during the war, or Colonel Keith Davenport, which was based on the first commander of the bomb group, Colonel Charles B. Overcracker. And others such as Pritchard, Stovall, and Bishop, they are all based on a very well-respected group of people.
Okay, so how this film did or didn't help me understand the US role in World War II. Well, 12 O'Clock High did not significantly help me understand the US role. However, instead, it did help me understand the greater effects of war on the people involved, more of the psychological effects of war. This movie depicts the emotional cost of commanding and fighting in the bombing raids against Nazi Germany, and it especially depicts the emotional and psychological cost seen through General Savage as he truly goes on these bombing raids with his men and experiences the real brutality of war firsthand. We see how this ultimately affects him emotionally and psychologically and changes him as a person. I particularly appreciate this feature because psychological and emotional effects of war is rarely addressed in war movies. And I think because this movie isn't just about fighting, fighting, fighting and the end results, and it's more about the outside and what it really does to people, and that's really interesting.
I really do see how war can change a person, like how it did with General Savage. The changes he had made to be a better leader to his group helped me understand how army life can change one's perspective.
War is such a terrible thing, and the only way out is gonna be peace.